I always felt like a square peg in a round hole, and I felt like my patients were not doing anything nourishing in terms of food. Most of the issues I dealt with were wrapped around hip replacements and maybe some strokes here and there and some neurological diseases. But traditional medicine, it looks to treat symptoms. You have a problem, we'll give you a drug, and we didn't check for contraindications or maybe you're on another medicine. Honestly, functional medicine, that's the first place we're going to ask. We're going to think, well, food is the first thing that ties in our immune system.
Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Michelson. And today we're joined by Lori Graham, a leading expert in metabolic health and functional medicine who embodies the principles she teaches and is the author of Dysfunctional Medicine. With over 40 years of experience and multiple certifications, including occupational therapy, a master's of science in exercise science, a postmaster's certificate in clinical nutrition, and as a certified functional medicine practitioner, she brings a unique science-based perspective to healthy aging. In today's conversation, we're talking about how the functional medicine approach to wellness can support vibrancy as we age. Lori shares her passion for empowering patients to lead their care and how it's never too late to feel better. Lori, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. This is going to be fun.
This is going to be fun. And I've finally just made myself hit record so that everybody could get the value from you. So I know you call yourself a recovering occupational therapist. Tell us a little bit about, what shifted your journey toward functional medicine.
I always felt like a square peg in a round hole, and I felt like my patients were not doing anything nourishing in terms of food. And most of the issues I dealt with were wrapped around hip replacements and maybe some strokes here and there and some neurological diseases. But the thing that became so palpable was a lot of kids would bring their parents donuts and muffins
Yep.
from like ShopRite and just leave it on the counter. So you really got to see what people were eating. And I had this parallel life where I was honestly plant-based for many times. I went raw. I did lots of different things just to see. I was athletic. I really wanted to see what fueled me the best. And I always felt like if you just didn't eat like that, you might feel a little better.
You
And
think?
worked with a wonderful naturopath who went to school with Jeffrey Bland.
Ah,
How do you like that?
I like
And
that. He
she
just had a
said to
birthday.
me, you should study functional medicine. I said, oh, okay. That sounds like an idea. And ironically, there was a program in New York City, so it made it really
That's
you know,
great.
easy for me to do. And my sense was that the doctors there were a breed different than the breed that, well, I didn't really partake in traditional medicine. I had a naturopath, I had a homeopath.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But the doctors there were disenfranchised from traditional medicine. Not so much that they were disenfranchised with pharma when it's needed, but they recognized that food was medicine
Mhm.
and they just didn't know how to glue it together. And they
Right.
were, And it was awe-inspiring. It was, "Oh, here's a doctor I'll give my health to," you know?
Right, right. Yeah. Ah,
Right.
amazing. Well, thank your friend for all of us.
Yeah, really.
It is amazing. And um there are so many differences, which actually, let's just start there. So you wrote a book called Dysfunctional Medicine.
Yes, and my husband thought up the name, and I said, "Oh my God, that's so good." And I don't want it to come across like I'm bashing medicine. I'm not. I have a special needs child, and honestly, I mean, his is a long story, not for now, but maybe another time, over
Yeah.
another coffee. But his was a blend of spiritual
Mm.
healing
Yep.
and also conventional medicine. And
Yeah.
and I think medicine shines when there's emergency medicine shines. But medicine changed many years ago when the principles surrounding it, like food be thy medicine,
Hmm.
changed. And pharma got involved with the curriculum. And I trace that in my book. But for me, I think that since so many patients worry about what it costs to see a functional medicine practitioner in the non-insurance model,
Hmm.
that educating patients
Yes.
on on what they can do for their own health,
Hmm.
and also I would say how to leverage what they know when they go to the doctor's office.
Yeah. Which which
So
which is so empowering.
it's very empowering. I jokingly say, back in the day, there was lots of talk about ombudsman. We don't hear it that much in the mainstream, now, but that's what I'm doing. They're the ombudsman for themselves because I'm teaching them. But traditional medicine, you know this, it looks to treat symptoms. You have a problem, we'll give you a drug, and oh, by the way, we didn't check for contraindications, or maybe you're on another medicine, ask your
Yeah.
people have to know to ask their pharmacist.
Right.
And traditional medicine shines though in emergency care. It-
Absolutely.
but with chronic disease where food reigns,
Yeah.
where you can take charge of your health through diet and lifestyle.
Hmm.
Honestly, why should medicine be paying for that? They should just pay for the blood test to follow you to see if you're outside the norm in some way. So, traditional medicine is evidence-based. So is functional medicine. It's
Hmm.
evidence-based. There are studies we rely on.
Hmm.
But we don't give meds just to treat symptoms. We look at what the root cause is. And traditional medicine doesn't look at root cause. I would also say that traditional medicine is very male centric in the sense that most of the studies speak about men,
Sure.
and the blood tests that are done are in much wider ranges. And I don't even know this for sure, but I'm going to half guess, except for female hormones, that everything else is, you know,
Typically, actually, and let's talk about the differences in the testing, because I know
yeah.
you are also of the test don't guess. There's certain things we all can be doing to be healthier, and then there's the individualized,
The N
and
of one, the N of
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Right.
And so I know we're aligned in that individualized approach and optimization. When you're looking at labs, you're looking for optimal for you. Um, I wrote an article a few years ago about that was in Best Holistic Life magazine about lab testing, because the reason the range is so wide is it's literally a bell curve on the average of everybody from that lab company that's taken the test.
From
So
that company.
from that lab company, so LabCorp's vitamin D range is going to be different than Vibrant's vitamin D range.
Wow.
Especially you see the big difference in hormones because
Right.
if you're going, insurance-based testing, you're going to have a lot of older people not on hormones.
Right.
If you go functional medicine testing, their ranges are going to be skewed a little more toward optimal because a lot of people are on hormone replacement. So it is fascinating. During COVID, some of the bigger, can go anywhere and get a draw lab companies changed their vitamin D ranges
Because we were worried
because
about it.
during COVID, people finally started taking vitamin D. And so one of them, the range only, I think, went to like 40 or 60,
Now
now it's
it's at 100.
120.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So you're real. And if you look at how unwell we are, who wants to be in the middle of that range?
Right, 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 right.
Not
And
me.
so, right, and even the ranges sometimes could be skewed up. The optimal ranges can be skewed, not screwed, skewed up or skewed down. They're not
Depends.
just in the middle somewhere,
Right.
right? And so, there are a couple of companies that they have algorithms that will actually take your blood test and put them into optimal ranges and then connect the dots, which somebody who's doing more of like um, orthomolecular biochemistry,
Mhm.
they really understand it. I'm not that person. I need support from like an algorithm, but it's amazing how different that range is.
Yeah, it really is. And I
It's
think
astounding.
the difference in because at my sickest was, well, your blood test looks fine. Always looks fine. And that's so common. I hear it all the time. And part of it is that what they're testing for. Again, back to they're not looking for root causes of anything.
Right.
So, um, and it's not because they don't want to. That's just not the model. It's not
Not the
how they're
model.
taught.
Doctors don't get taught nutrition
Yeah,
in medical schools. So there's a gap.
yeah,
There's a tremendous gap. And functional medicine also, they really do honor the individuals. So
yeah,
when I do an assessment with somebody, I'm taking 90 minutes. I'm a little
yeah.
slower than your husband might be. But I'm also coaching. You know what I mean? So
Right. Well, yeah.
asking different types of
Hmm.
questions. And sometimes when I'm doing a history, I go, oh my God,
Uh-huh.
that's it.
You
That's what
see it.
you.
Yeah.
And traditional medicine doesn't necessarily take that time because they're boxed into these. First of all, the medical assistant is taking your blood pressure and, taking your pulse, and they're asking the regular questions that they have to put into the EMR. But if it were the doctor doing it, honestly, they might actually be asking, "How are you, Mrs. Smith? Anything new?" Like, and start things rolling,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and getting people open to talking more. Patients give you the answers. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
you
Even
know,
if they don't know it.
They
They don't
they
realize
don't
they're,
recognize that
yeah,
they're giving you the answers.
sure.
Right, they
Sure.
don't. And I literally leave an hour and a half, and I
Yeah.
tell patients, leave me that hour and a half with you. When I have to come up with a food plan,
Yeah.
I want to make sure this is going to be successful for
Right.
them.
Right. Yeah. Well,
You know,
and even just to touch on the labs again, um, any good practitioner isn't treating the lab results. You're
right,
treating the patient, right? So I hear that all the time. To me, the best example is hormones, whether you're talking thyroid hormone or sex hormones, how do you feel,
right,
right? Because I know for me, where my free T3 needs to be to feel well,
Right.
right? But I don't know what that number is for you.
Right, right. And and that's interesting you say that, because on my journey with my functional medicine practitioner, we were noticing my cholesterol going up, and I eat very plant forward.
Yeah.
I don't eat chicken, I don't eat meat. My choice. It happened in college. It's just the food was really bad in college. But I'm eating, fatty fish now, doing my
Good.
snatch. So anyway, my cholesterol's going up. I'm not eating cholesterol to
Yep.
speak of.
But
It's in some of the nuts and the seeds.
but we now know that eating cholesterol doesn't raise
Right.
cholesterol.
We now know, right. And then the other side of it is that it's going up because you're not making much estrogen anymore, lady.
Yep.
And my thyroid's struggling. So
Yep.
you're right. So this is a really great, kind of example. I'm going to have a visit soon after I get to go and get my blood test, but I went on T porcine, NT thyroid, which is from porcine, which apparently doesn't have gluten, but armathyroid,
And P thyroid's typically the cleaner.
the cleaner. But now we have people talking about not even taking that. But there's a lot, and listen, patients get confused by all this too. You and I both know that. Like they don't know
It
what to.
goes back to the individual. Like so I take thyroid hormone, and I have interviewed people that feel like, I don't want to, well, I will use the word, like that's a failure. I feel the best I have felt in my life. I'm okay. I don't care. I don't get a prize at the
Right,
end
right,
of the
right.
road.
You don't get a prize for this.
No.
So so
And I
so
don't eat pork, but I
right.
take, so there.
Me
That's
neither.
my personal
But here's something
decision.
interesting. My TSH went up. My cholesterol went higher.
It's interesting.
Everybody's different, and that's the thing. So
Yeah. But you also did just mention, just because,
because I've had some stress recently,
okay.
although that blood test was precedes the stress.
But we need cholesterol to make
We
our
need
hormones.
cholesterol to make our
And
hormones.
even when we're at a point where we might not be making so many hormones, our body is still going to try.
Try. It's still going to try.
Yeah.
So we need to look at things like inflammation. We need to look at oxidative stress. We need to look at how buoyant your LDL are. So I have this great scientist I work with who has this circle. You can find it on the web. It's just he happened to introduce it to me.
Mhm.
And it shows how if you go on a statin, then you'll get diabetes. So you'll take a diabetes med, and then you'll get high blood pressure, and then you'll take a high blood pressure med, and oh, then by the way, you'll get Alzheimer's. And I mean, it's a little Debbie Downer, and I don't know that it's 100% truth because there's some genetics that play into this with the
Sure. And also depends on how
lots of
you're
different.
taking a statin, and are you taking
How about
CoQ10 with your statin, and
how
what
about
are
this?
you eating this whole
Right,
time?
how about this? You're a woman, I'm a woman.
Yeah.
We know our bones can get weaker because we're not making as much estrogen. So I say to my women, aging, and my women are aging with me. Like it's kind of funny that my population is an older population, but I'm 10 years older than when I started,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But I say you've got other levers to pull. You can do more resistance training.
Right. Yeah.
You
Put
can
on
you
more
can
muscle.
push, you can push, you can wear the weighted vest when you go for a walk or you walk your dog.
Yep.
You- There are more things that we can do to pull different levers. And then if that doesn't work, then maybe you look at a medicine. But always we have to ask why.
Right. Yeah. And I love the pulling levers. I mean, it's the same as looking at genetics or taking into account genetics, right? We can know predispositions, but let's change what's influencing our genetics.
Right. Right.
And so I love that. And honestly, for me, it's really exciting that the longer you're doing this, the older your clients are getting. Here's why. It because people are learning about functional medicine, and there was this kind of false notion that it's too late for me, right? Like I'm too old.
Do you
Uh,
know you wanna know what I did last Saturday? You're gonna love this.
what'd you do?
I have 2 grandchildren. One is almost 6, the other's almost 4, and I jumped on a trampoline with both of them. Now
Woohoo!
now it's not like I haven't jumped on a trampoline, but I haven't jumped on a trampoline since my kids were little.
Sure.
But how many 68-year-old women do you know who jump on a trampoline with their grandchildren?
It's amazing. I can
Like
like list lymphatic support, fun, joy, all the good neurotransmitters.
right, right.
Um,
But
you
but
know,
that's why we,
yeah,
and so the other thing about functional medicine, and your audience might know this, but food is medicine.
right.
The different colors, and like I'm not as extreme as what's his name, Brian Johnson?
Yeah,
I'm not extreme like that, but he really says it well. He says everything I put in my mouth has a purpose. Now, I'm not that bad, but if I
or
want
that
something,
good, depending
or
on
that,
your.
if I want something really good, my really good is like taking a fig, not a fig, a date, and popping some almond butter in it and 2 or 3, cacao chips. But listen, and here's the other thing about my book mixed into this conversation, and you're the
Yeah,
functional medicine coach, and I didn't get here overnight.
sure. And
I
you're
used
not
to,
done.
and I'm not done, but I used to take my kids snacks. Like I was the shop the smart way, so I'd get a big bag of Ruffles, and there were only 3 ingredients back in the days. It was canola oil, which we all thought was good back then,
Back
and
then.
I put it in Ziploc bags, and then I'd eat the bag when they went to sleep.
Well, I say that all the time. Like, I wasn't born eating this way. For me personally, it took me getting very sick to learn.
Right.
Even what, we joke all the time because like my oldest son has celiac, and he would be like, "You were trying to kill me. I'd be homesick and you'd be giving me saltines." And I'm like, "Well, that's what my mom did."
Right.
Like when
Well,
when
guess what? If you have diarrhea, I mean, part of it is the salt to retain the fluids a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but it was the gluten is what was making him sick to
Well, I
begin with.
got news for you.
But he didn't have any GI issues. So,
But
and
he has celiac, but that might have just like you said he had celiac, right?
he does, yeah.
So now you're giving me cause to think. My mother had we called it colitis back in the day. I don't
Hmm.
know if that's what she really had.
Right.
Because we've probably become more nuanced
Sure.
in diagnosis. But when I did my genetics, there are 2 genes that govern celiac, and
Mhm.
I'm heterozygous on one of those. So that is an Ashkenazi trait.
It is an Ashkenazi trait. I knew it when I saw the curly hair. Yeah.
But that just, like, and then I work with a lot of patients with GI issues, and I don't know really how many women don't have some form of GI issues with our hormones changing all the time. And honestly, like, I think that's the first place as a functional medicine practitioner, that in traditional medicine, nobody ever really asks you, but in functional medicine, that's the first place we're going to ask. We're going to think, well, food is the first thing that
I
is
call it
for
the low-hanging fruit, right?
it's
We
a
all
low-hanging fruit, but it's a foreign body.
It's either driving illness or driving wellness. Yeah, and your gut has to discern
Right, right.
is this
And
nutrition or is there, a bacteria I need to get rid of real quick? Yeah.
right, and I think, also just on the topic of aging where this ties in, our immune system is supposed to decline as we get older, but I don't think it has to.
No,
I think we really just have to keep nourishing the healthy bugs in our
sure. Yeah. And some of the what we, I know I've heard you use my favorite word, inflammaging. Um, that we normalize so many of these inflammation driven declines and we just call it aging, right? Oh, I'm sore, I'm tired, I'm all the things. My brain's not working as well. They all have reasons,
they do.
but also for those of us that have been on the earth for a while, well, the earth is a lot dirtier than it was 30 years ago.
We deal with
So,
toxic.
of course, our immune system needs more support because it's bombarded. It's just dealing with a
We're
lot.
bombarded. And honestly, like I tell my patients, control what you can.
Yeah,
You can't control everything. You're not going to live in a bubble.
right.
You're not, but you
Yeah,
can get a
and you
filter.
don't have to
You don't have to. You can get a
yeah,
filter in your home and you can buy organic and
or
you
grow your food.
or grow your food or exercise and sweat it out. And you can think about foods that open up your detoxification and your lymph. And as we're aging, as things are changing, the rules do change because
Yes.
our hormones are changing. And, one of the things I hear from women, I think this is the perfect place to talk about this, is, they want to become that perfect body again. And I think that's probably okay up to around 60.
Mhm.
And I've really shifted in this over the years. But honestly, like, you don't want to be overweight. You want to build muscle. So get a body composition scale and follow your muscle instead of the total amount that you weigh. Follow your
Well, it's
muscle.
funny because you said perfect body, and in my literally the words that popped into my brain were strong. Like the
Oh,
perfect
nice.
body is strong,
Right,
right? And
right.
and so yeah, we need to shift our definition of what a perfect body is.
Right. And how about this? Since there still is a little bit of controversy around taking estrogen past 60, and I don't know if it's,
Not in my world.
well, hang on, I'm going to say that there are some people that
You
I'm not,
hear everything
you
from,
hear everything.
yep,
So if you're sorting through it and really trying to find what your truth is, a little extra fat on your body, guess what? You make estrogen from the fat.
right.
And so you don't want the visceral fat. You don't want to be tubby.
Yeah, and
You
you
put it
don't
on
want
your
too much
hips.
estrone, which tends
Right.
to be fat-derived
So I don't
estrogen as well.
I just think
But
we have to be a little more muscle focused. And
for sure.
you asked me before we got on about how was my day, and I did my yoga class, and I do vinyasa, so it's a strenuous, it's a heated room. It's pretty strenuous. And there are a lot of younger people that I
Sure.
aspire to be like. But I'm really working on my balance these days, like standing on
So
one
important.
leg.
Yeah, well,
But
it's one of the
I was
most
an OT.
important longevity tools is
How many
balance.
people's lives get ruined
Yeah,
in their 70s and 80s if they take a fall?
right.
It's not when you want to have surgery.
No, for sure. And that's where that being strong and working on balance and, you know, you don't have to be a supermodel. Like a body that's functioning well and feels good is the ideal body, right?
Right, right,
So,
right,
I
right.
laugh. I really grew up with an aversion to the word skinny because I was a very thin child. I was an eater. I did not have an eating disorder. My dad was skinny as a rail. He probably had celiac too. Who knows? Likely. Um,
Yeah.
and so I have that lens of, well, now I look back at that body that didn't have any extra body fat on it that most women would like kill for. And I think, well, sure, I wasn't absorbing my nutrients.
Right, right.
You
You were
know?
unhealthy. Right, you were right, right. And
You know,
they didn't know about medical food for people like that to just get
no,
crisis. They didn't
yeah.
have.
No, and I mean, my dad tried. We went through a phase where he made me, a milkshake every day with an egg in it. Like trying, and I'm like, Dad, I look just like you. Like, it's not gonna
Well,
happen.
it's funny you should say that because I am weed avoidant. I am at this point in my life, I am weed avoidant. But my parents used to have in Long Island where I grew up, they had Snyder's pretzels and
Yes.
they got
Oh,
delivered
in the
and
can.
in the can. And I used to get constipated when I had one of those big pretzels.
Uh-huh.
Not constipated, but like it was
But
just
it
hard to
affected
go to
you.
the bathroom.
Yeah.
And you know, that didn't make sense until I went to college when Snyder's pretzels weren't on the menu. And and the meat was bad. And then I started eating like lots of salads. And I didn't grow up with lots of salads. It was
I
iceberg,
did, but they were iceberg lettuce and maybe a
iceberg lettuce,
tomato. That was
and
it.
maybe a tomato, right? But honestly, like they had lots of diversity of vegetables and different salads all over. And I
Wow.
worked for food service, so I read Adele Davis, Diet for a Small Planet, and I was sold. So there I was eating lots of vegetables, going to the bathroom regularly. Oh,
Right.
isn't that novel? No Snyder pretzels.
They were delicious. It's been decades and decades, and my mouth is watering, even though you could give me a whole can right now, and I have not willingly, we in our household, it's being glutened is a verb. It's something that happens to you because I will not, people ask me all the, do you ever cheat? And I'm like, if you had any idea how sick
Yeah,
I get,
right.
and that's the beauty of when you find out for yourself, right?
When
Like
you get your blueprint, it's your
there,
blueprint.
there's things I'm sensitive to that I can have sometimes, and they're nutrient dense, and I'll have them on as a treat on occasion,
Right.
and like nightshades, you know.
Right, but
Um,
you can't have a diet centered around it. And we know
mm-mm.
where we can push the envelope. And I say that to my patients if I put them through a weight loss plan. And I have a really good, effective weight loss plan that changes your awareness around food significantly. But I tell people you're going to cheat a little bit and you're not going to let the scale go up 5 pounds, it'll go up 2 pounds.
Right, and that's
Then you
inflammation. That's
Right,
it's,
that is right, and it'll come down as soon as you change course, but you're gonna
yeah.
know where you can push the envelope a little bit, and that's you. And then I say, and guess what? And the rules are gonna change every 10 years because you're a woman. And
That's
we have
funny.
to roll with those punches because what they do, they change.
Yeah. Well, and
I
I'm still experimenting with, what I have learned in the past 2 years is I can eat tomatoes from my garden all summer long.
No problem.
No problem.
Well, why? Because they're completely organic.
I, but if I buy organic tomatoes in the winter, now I don't know, and I haven't played with seasonal eating. I eat seasonal-ish. Um, I don't know if it's a seasonal thing. I don't know if
Is your
it's
stomach better during season, like during the growing season, since you're eating more from the garden? Would you say you see a change?
my stomach's, I mean, when I'm eating, like my stomach's fine, unless I'm experimenting.
Right, right. But if you
So
experimented from your garden, you would have less problem.
it seems to be. I mean,
Yeah,
because I thought like, okay, I'm finally like tomatoes are back in, and no, they're not, but they are from the garden in the summer.
right,
It's
right.
it's kind of wild, So, but that's
It makes you
back to
question maybe organic isn't 100% organic because again, we cannot trust 100%.
right.
We can't, the labeling. And there are certain like pesticides that are allowed, I think, when they say it's organic, and
It could be. Yeah,
they're very marginal, but that might be what pushes you over
it
the
could
edge.
be. But to your point of we're always changing, there are things that I don't eat that every few years I'll be like, how about now?
Right,
Not gluten for me. That's not
right,
a
right. That's not an option.
not even worth the experiment.
Right.
But it goes back to the beginning of the conversation about empowering people. When we
Right.
teach people to really pay attention to the signals that they're getting,
Right.
then we can shift course, right? We could do a reset. We can, you know,
And people, by and large, people think it's normal to have a foggy head in the morning, think it's normal to be stiff in the morning. I'm not stiff in the morning.
no,
I don't have a
it's
foggy
all
head.
inflammation.
Years ago, yeah, years ago I did, but
Hmm.
and I have a wonderful husband who's has chronic Lyme, and I'm the person who recognizes when it's happening again. And thankfully, I don't go after what he brings into the house for himself. But if he goes to processed food,
Hmm. Yeah.
all of a sudden he's coughing, and then he gets a neck pain.
Uh-huh.
And then I go, oh, this sounds familiar. You need to go to your doctor and get a Lyme test.
Yeah.
And we're in one of those cycles now. And like it's his and for anybody who's listening to this, you may not have a partner that buys into what
Sure.
to, and you have to do what's right for you, because
Yeah.
you cannot eat the way your partner eats just because it's easier.
Right. Yeah. And I love that you're dispel. That's like excuse number one you hear all the time, whether it's the partner or for younger people, it's, oh, my kids won't eat. I'm like, your kids are going to eat what you put on the table. They
Kids are
are.
what
They're not
you do.
going to skip very many meals at
Right,
all,
right,
and so for me, the fun part about working with women raising families is changing that cycle of like, let's not, your kids should be able to avoid the chronic illness and then need the big course correct in their 40s,
right,
50s, 60s,
right.
70s. If they just start right now eating real food, like let's just start there. Real food.
You are so right. You
Yeah.
are so right.
So it's fun, but he's lucky he has, and then sometimes we're blessed and we have a partner who's dialed into us.
Well, my
So,
husband is very allowing. Years
yeah.
ago when we got married, I still had kids living in the house. And I said to him, I will cook the vegetables, but you will cook your meats. Because,
That's fair. You don't eat
well,
meat.
because I got to a point where I realized I wasn't eating enough protein and I was living on protein shakes. And I just said, I don't have the time to make your protein and make a different protein for me.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
know, and I think we have to always honor what our body needs.
sure.
And in just we have to let our partners do what they, because they might not be as motivated to do what you might be doing. If you have a health challenge, you have to
Right.
take if you're motivated to take care of it, then take charge and find a functional medicine person.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the
Or,
only kind of person who's going to dig deeply enough.
yeah. Amen. Amazing. And so you do a lot of, I know you do one-on-one as well, but you do a lot of group work, yes?
Basically, I have a few different tiers of service. If I have somebody that really needs to make significant changes and they're coming from truly conventional, haven't taken a step in this direction yet,
Sure.
and if they can afford, I will put them in quite tight touch with me so that
Uh-huh.
they're texting me every day. I want to know what they're eating. We're changing things around. I meet with
Hmm.
them every week the first 6 weeks and then every other week. And I try to wean them off,
Yeah.
about 3 to 4 months. That's kind of my signature program.
Gotcha.
I do one-on-one visits
Mm-hmm.
um, with people that are highly motivated to follow through with the care plan. And we do follow-up visits as needed. And then I run groups. So right now I have like a weight loss group that I'm running, and I'm starting on April 10th my diabesity program. Why? I was inspired, and I really mean inspired. A woman, and I can speak about this only because she's all over my Instagram page, because otherwise I don't normally share patients' stories. But she was looking to move onto her sailboat in Belize, where she is now, and she was on insulin and 2 oral meds, and her blood sugars were flirting in the 300 to 400 range.
Right. Yeah.
And honestly, the way it went was I put her on keto,
Mm-hmm.
and she came down into the high 100s. The doctor took her off the oral meds. And one day she's at about 120. And she said, should I take my insulin, at dinner time? And I said, no, you need to call your doctor and find out if you need to take less
Right.
because you will be sleeping at night.
Yeah.
She never called him, and she took her insulin. And in the morning, she got up and she was at about 60.
Yeah.
So she didn't have any glucose tubes or anything like that. So what she did was she took saltwater taffy. She didn't even have an arm. I'm gonna
Cornstarch
get
or
somebody.
corn syrup.
Have somebody bring me something. No, she said, I found saltwater taffy. Fine, get your blood sugar up a little bit. She never looked back
Yeah.
at her
And
insulin.
I see it over and over and over again. And I love that wasn't the the start of the conversation, but it is important to highlight if you are on medication, whether it is, because often they go hand in hand, blood pressure medication, anything for blood sugar, whether, from metformin to insulin to
We do
all
not.
of the GLP-1s that are out there now, all the things. Because I see it time and time again, and that if we're talking type 2, that's a lifestyle illness, and all of that is reversible, and you don't ever have to look back. But it is. I love that it's so important to be.
But
Yeah.
now she changed her hemoglobin A1C, went from 7.4 to
Mhm.
6.3. And so she's insulin resistant. She's not really diabetic at this point in time. She's insulin resistant, and she's now walking.
Yeah.
She's down in Belize. She is working out with a trainer, doing weights.
It's amazing.
And we're going to use more herbal support now, and she's on a CGM. So I see everything on the screen.
Sure. Yeah.
But she loves having someone like me
Sure.
to say, you need to go out for a walk now. I just looked at you. Go
Partner.
for a walk.
That's great. I love it. So where can listeners find the book, Dysfunctional
The
Medicine?
book is on Amazon, Dysfunctional Medicine.
And
And
where's the best place to find you?
they should reach out to nutrifyyourlife.com, and that's all one word, NUTRIFYOUR, like all one, not three separate words, all one.com. And I have a contact me button there. So if
Nice.
anybody really wants to talk to me, what I do a complimentary 15 to 20 minute, is this right for you kind of conversation, and then we'll figure out what you need. So take
Love
it.
it.
Yep.
Amazing. Lori, I'm so excited that we connected.
I
I
am too.
love that you are attracting a mature community, because it just means that we're creating, that the ripple is working, right? And we're creating the change. So thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us. And we are glad that you are recovering from that OT world and joined us over here.
And that saying, be the change that you want to be.
Yes. Amazing. Amazing. Oh, and listeners are probably like, wait, don't let her go yet. What is one step that listeners can take starting today? It could be anything you want to throw at us to start to improve their health.
Give up processed food.
Yes. Yeah. Amazing.
Huge.
Huge.
That one thing without any personalization will make a
Yeah.
huge change across the board.
Yes. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For everyone listening, remember you can get the transcripts and show notes by visiting inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Go find Lori.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.